السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأصلي وأسلم على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. رب زدنا علما، رب زدنا علما، رب زدنا علما نافعا. آمين. We are discussing about the political thinking of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah. And as we have said in the previous session, that this great scholar is a polymath who contributed to almost all the spheres of Islamic thought, particularly theology, philosophy, and law. However, we are only concerned about his political thought in Islamic worldview, and we are trying to understand the innovative manhaj or opinions of the scholar from which we can benefit and try to carve modern Muslim political thought. In order to understand Ibn Taymiyyah's contribution, rahimahullah, to Islamic political thought, which does not cover a lot in his legacy, because as I said, his works are primarily focused on theology, philosophy, and law. However, we find a good number of treatises and space which he gave to explaining the political thought. But it is very minuscule when compared with other areas of Islamic thought. To understand Ibn Taymiyyah, we have to grasp the culmination of the classical Islamic political thought. We know in the early al-Rashidun era, al-Khulafa al-Rashidun, which is the golden period of political system in Islam, the main focus was al-Ummah, the community of the Muslims. The community was politically aware, and it participated in the political process, whether it is election of the rulers or their accountability and other affairs. This was the pinnacle of the early golden age of Islam. And the main decline which happened after this golden age was in losing this community, or the disappearance of this community. So after that, two visions appeared in the political canvas of the Muslim thought, which were opposites: ruler-centered vision versus community-centered vision. And this was the departure from the Rashidun legacy, which was prophesied by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam also. Khilafah will turn into Mulukiyah. And we have talked about that. We will not go into the details again. Khilafah will be turned into Mulukiyah in some particular things. And the main legacy which we lost was community-centered vision of political system. And ruler-centered vision appeared on the scene. So subjects became passive recipients of the guidance of the Khalifa. This was, we can call this an absolutist form of government, in which the role of the subjects was only to passively receive the guidance of the Khalifa, and engagement was there. However, it was limited. the engagement of the community in political affairs was limited. And sometimes these rulers, some of these rulers, they even turn into despots. We have some great rulers also in the Umayyads and the Abbasids after the rightly guided Khilafah. Like in the Umayyads, we have the great Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, rahimahullah, who is known as Umar al-Thani, the second Umar, because he revived this community-based vision. And in the Abbasids, we have the great Harun al-Rashid, in his inclination towards knowledge, scholarship, justice, so on and so forth. We have good rulers also. However, we are talking about the system as a whole. So the Muslim community was divided into particular fractions in which the ruler was God's shadow, the theologian was the master of or the expert of understanding God's nature, the jurist knew God's will, and the mystic, Sufi, or the early Zuhad, they understood God's secrets. This was the divide: ruler, theologian, jurist, and mystic. And in this divide, the community disappeared, or the role of the community as a whole, al-Ummah, disappeared. So from the basic and core political concepts in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Ashura. And in fact, we have this emphasis on Shura everywhere in the Quran. And Shura means engagement of the community in political process. وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُمْ. They decide their matters by Shura, by mutual consultation. So in Shura, we have two parties. And Shura is a comprehensive concept which defines the political will of the community. This is at the core of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this vision was eventually lost after the rightly guided Khilafah. Al-Ummah, which is based on Shura, the community of the Muslims, engages in the political process. It puts the rulers to accountability and all other political engagements. So basically, the despots who came in the Muslim legacy, and the rule of sword, rule by the sword, which became a norm, was rejected by the early political vision of the Muslims. And in fact, rule by the sword was considered the main quality of mulukiyah, despotic kingdom or kingship. For example, we have a very interesting riwayah which has been narrated from the great Sahabi Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiyallahu anhu, in defining and differentiating between the legitimate political system and mulk, the despotic kingship or hereditary kingdom. It has been narrated by Imam Ibn Sa'd in his Tabaqat on the authority of Masruq ibn al-Ajda. He says, قال كنت مع أبي موسى أيام الحكمين وفسطاطي إلى جانب فسطاطه. He says, I was with the great Sahabi Abu Musa al-Ash'ari in the days of dispute between Muawiyah radiyallahu anhu and Ali. فأصبح الناس ذات يوم قد لحقوا بمعاوية من الليل. In the night, many people, he says, وفسطاطي إلى جانب فسطاطي. My tent was with the tent of Abu Musa. يعني I was very near to him. فأصبح الناس ذات يوم قد لحقوا بمعاوية من الليل. We know Abu Musa al-Ashari was with Ali رضي الله عنه. He says many people, they shifted to the camp of Muawiyah in the night رضي الله عنه. فلما أصبح أبو موسى رفع رفرف فسطاطه فقال. And in the morning when Abu Musa al-Ash'ari heard about this, he lifted the curtain of his tent and said, يا مسروق ابن الأجدع. O مسروق. قلت لبيك أبا موسى. I am here. I said, I am here, O Abu Musa رضي الله عنه. قال إن الإمرة. And this is a very deep saying of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, which has great political connotations. Abu Musa said رضي الله عنه, قال إن الإمرة ما اؤتمر فيها. The legitimate political authority is in which people are consulted, in which the political authority is decided by mutual consultation. وَإِنَّ الْمُلْكَ مَا غُلِبَ عَلَيْهِ بِالسَّيْفِ. And mulk, the despotic kingship or kingdom, is مَا غُلِبَ عَلَيْهِ بِالسَّيْفِ. What is achieved by the sword. So if the authority is despotic by the sword, he called it al-mulk. It is not the real imrah, the legitimate political authority. This is a very interesting riwayah from Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiyallahu anhu. And we have many ahadith in which the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said about this. He prophesied. We have explained those ahadith also, and the difference between khilafah and mulukiyah, and we should be balanced in understanding these matters. So this divide which happened in the Muslim community was the primary concern of Imam Ibn Taymiyyah in his reformist project. So the main achievement of Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, if we can use this terminology, we can say that the main achievement or the main reformist achievement, tajdeed of Ibn Taymiyyah in this particular sphere, is Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah politicized the community as a whole. He politicized the community, or entire community becomes the site of political authority. So his manhaj focused on, or his approach can be called as deconstructionist. He deconstructed and engaged with this divide in the Muslim community, which had led to a kind of elitism, in which the ruler was God's shadow. Again, the theologian was understood, only the theologian understood God's nature, jurist knew God's will, and the mystic was aware of God's secrets. So in this process, the community, the role of the community was, as a whole, was limited. And the community disappeared in this process. So this is a kind of elitism which happened. And we have talked about how the early political thinkers like Imam al-Juwayni and al-Imam al-Ghazali, we talked about them, they engaged with this practical problem. We called it they engaged innovatively with the practical problem of the ummah, and in their works they legitimized the rulers who came by the power of the sword, and we called it realpolitik, and it was important for them. They had to guide the ummah. Sometimes you have to your manhaj will be based on compromise in order to protect the ummah as a whole. in order to protect the affairs of the ummah. But it does not mean that this manhaj was the original method or approach based on Quran and Sunnah. It was a compromise. Sometimes you have to choose between evil, less evil, and more evil. So we should not turn, we should deeply understand the manhaj. So if the manhaj is about compromise or realpolitik, protecting the affairs of the ummah, structure of the ummah, we should not turn it into the original approach based on Quran and Sunnah. The original approach is the political will of the community, ummah, ashura. These are the original approaches or the principles. So Ibn Taymiyyah's approach can be called deconstructionist, against the divide in the Muslim community, which was a kind of elitism. And also, he, in his approach, in his method, he politicized the community, and entire community, the ummah, becomes the site of political authority. So if you read Ibn Taymiyyah, keeping this higher principle in mind or methodology, you will be able to understand his original ideas in proper context. So, tajdeed, revival, is about adopting certain methods and manahij in order to reform the ummah. And one of the best methods of revival is self-critique, learning from our mistakes. Deconstructionist approach, deconstructionism, which we have called here, or we have taken it from some contemporary experts of Ibn Taymiyyah. Deconstructing, learning from the mistakes, reflecting on our legacy. This is the meaning of tajdeed. So tajdeed does not mean that we bring new religion, or tajdeed is not only a linear approach or adding to the legacy. Tajdeed is about learning from our mistakes and self-critique. An-naqd, manhajun naqd, is the best method applied in at-tajdeed. So if you study Ibn Taymiyyah's, rahimahullah, his non-orthodox opinions in the light of this principle, empowering the community, so we can say his main approach was empowering the community generally, or as we said, politicizing the community. Ibn Taymiyyah, we can use another term for this, politicizing, or he politicized the community. Okay. We see this in his approach generally, both in theology, in law, and the political opinions. So, for example, we will explain this with some examples. We cannot go into the details. For example, in theology, in his critique against the mutakallimin, ilm al-kalam, one of the main approaches, or one of the main points which he has against mutakallimin, is their elitist methodology of understanding the rational evidences. So there are certain evidences, rational evidences, with which the mutakallimun engage, and they want every Muslim to understand Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His names and attributes, based on that rational method and evidences, which is, and we must acknowledge that this, which is sometimes very sophisticated a method. These evidences and the details are sophisticated and difficult for a common Muslim to understand. For this reason, they themselves, the mutakallimun, we will see in their books, for example, the Ash'ari mutakallim, al-Imam al-Sannusi, who is Turjuman al-Mutakallimin. He is one of the greatest scholars of ilm al-kalam. In his sharh, in his commentary on al-Barahin, which is a great treatise on ilm al-kalam, he explains this, and he gives, he relaxes the conditions, because he also knows that this approach is very sophisticated. So he says, when mutakallimun, they put this condition of understanding aqidah based on rational evidences, they mean ad-dalil al-jumli, the summary of the evidences, or understanding the evidences in brief, not in the details. So iman and aqidah should be based on evidence. And this is the critique of Ibn Taymiyyah as well. And Imam Ibn al-Qayyim also explained this in his Madarij al-Salikin against the mutakallimin. So mutakallimun themselves, they understand that this approach is very sophisticated, which may not be feasible for common Muslims to engage with. For this reason, they say dalil al-jumli is sufficient. Understanding the evidences as a whole is sufficient, not going into the details. Ibn Taymiyyah, now this is elitist. Yani we have a structure of theology which is specific to a certain class of scholars who, after robust training, can understand the evidences and their details. So this is out of the reach from common masses. Now Ibn Taymiyyah, one of his critiques on this structure is introducing the dalil of fitrah. He introduces the evidence of fitrah, natural disposition. He says this is a better evidence to understand Allah, His names and attributes, and theology. This is a better evidence in theology. And we know fitrah is not specific with a certain class of Muslims. It is not specific with theologians. It is not specific with legal experts, jurists. Fitrah is the fitrah of all Muslims. Again, empowering the community, dragging the community into all affairs. Because according to him, this is the original and primary concern of Quran. The maslahah of the community will reign supreme. Another example is, which we explained in the previous session. We pointed to it and we read from Majmul Fatawa, we read some lines, political pacifism of Ibn Taymiyyah. When Ibn Taymiyyah, he discourages from rebellion, he speaks against the rebellion of Al-Hussein radiyallahu an, safely of course. He criticizes the opponents of Al-Hussein, blames them of treachery and evil, but at the same time he does not agree with Al-Hussein. He says in many places that there is no rebellion which has succeeded in our history, so on and so forth, which has been taken as a main foundation by the modern Salafi movement, and sometimes even distorted. Usually these great thinkers, polymaths, they are so big in their thought, their canvas is so vast that they are misunderstood many times, misunderstood by the supporters and the opponents, both. So to engage with the scholars like Ibn Taymiyyah, Shah Waliullah Muhaddis al-Dahlawi, al-Imam al-Ghazali, al-Imam al-Shafi'i, al-Imam al-Shatibi, it does not suffice to read a book here and there. You have to study their thought as a whole and extract the main foundations of the thought and understand everything in that context. This is very important. Otherwise, there will be serious misunderstandings. So yes, he is a political pacifist. He discourages rebellion. But does it mean he does not have any understanding of the accountability of the rulers? No. He participated in jihad. His works, particularly Majmu' al-Fatawa, are filled with the concern for al-amru bil-ma'ruf wal-nahi anil munkar, even against the rulers. So he is not a political pacifist in that meaning. But again, concern of the community. The maslaha of the community is more important than the political system itself, than this or that ruler. So he says, if he claims that rebellions have never been in the maslaha of the ummah. So it is better to remain patient on the dhulm of the rulers. We are not agreeing or disagreeing with Ibn Taymiyyah here, as we have said. We are not doing that in this Islamic worldview engagement. We are just trying to understand the innovative methods of these great scholars in order to learn. We can disagree, agree, we can deconstruct Ibn Taymiyyah himself. And the best gift Ibn Taymiyyah gives us is deconstructionism, this method of critique and naqd, which we apply to him also, which we apply to others. This is the best method of ijtihad which we can learn. So he supports and stands for the community, the accountability of the rulers. He participated in jihad. He had to face hardship and difficulty to stand for an-nahi anil munkar. He himself engaged in forbidding the evil against the rulers, but at the same time, community comes first. So rebellions, they don't have maslaha for the community. There is more munkar in that. That's why he takes the position of political pacifism. And for example, if we read from Majmu' al-Fatawa, volume 28, page 62, which is about al-Hizbah, the internal accountability in a Muslim state. He talks about accountability of the rulers also. So for example, he says here about qital, explaining qital, that the real qital is man qatala li takuna kalimatullahi al-ulya, which is performed only to make the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala supreme, the famous hadith. He says, وَكُلُّ بَنِي آدَمْ لَا تَتِمُّ مَصْلِحَتُهُمْ لَا فِي الدُّنْيَا وَلَا فِي الْآخِرَةِ إِلَّا بِالْإِجْتِمَاعِ وَالتَّعَاوُنِ وَالتَّنَاصُرِ. All sons of Adam, all human beings, their maslaha, their benefit will never be perfected, neither in dunya nor in akhirah, except by mutual support and unity on acquiring the benefit. فَالتَّعَاوُنُ وَالتَّنَاصُرُ عَلَى جَلْبِ مَنَافِئِهِمْ. This mutual support and unity is to acquire the benefits. وَالتَّنَاصُرُ لِدَفْءِ مَضَارِّهِمْ. And so the ta'awun, mutual support, is to acquire the benefits. And tanasur, nusra, to each other, unity, is to repel the harms. وَلِهَذَا يُقَالُ. For this reason, it is said, al-insanu madaniyun bit-tabi'i. A human being is social in nature. فَإِذَا اجْتَمَعُوا فَلَا بُدَّ لَهُم مِّنْ أُمُورٍ يَفْعَلُونَهَا يَجْتَلِبُونَ بِهَا الْمَصْلَحَةِ. Human beings are social in nature. So if they unite in a particular place, they must engage in matters by which they acquire their benefit. See, how he talks about the community as a whole. He politicizes entire community. These are not responsibilities of the ruler only. He's not saying ruler should do this, ruler should do that. Whole community, subhanallah. وَأُمُورٌ يَجْتَنِبُونَهَا لِمَا فِيهَا مِنَ الْمَفْسَدَةِ. Then they must abstain from matters which contain harm. وَيَكُونُونَ مُطِيعِينَ لِلْآمِرِ بِتِلْكَ الْمَقَاصِدِ وَالنَّاهِ عن تلك المفاسد. And they will obey the one who commands those maqasid, who commands those higher objectives and benefits, and who forbids those mafasid. Subhanallah, ruler is subservient to the community. Obedience is basically subservient to the maslahah of the community, to the benefit and harm of the community. So they will be subservient, they will obey the amir, the ruler, who understands these maqasid, who works to acquire these benefits for the community of the Muslims and protects them from the mafasid. فَجَمِيعُ بَنِي آدَمْ لَا بُدَّ لَهُم مِّن طَاعَةِ آمِرٍ وَنَاهٍ. Political system is at the very core of human societies. So all Bani Adam, all human beings, they require this ta'ah, obedience, to the one who commands them and stops them, commands them to fulfill these benefits and stops them, protects them from mafasid, from harms. فَمَنْ لَمْ يَكُنْ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْكُتُبِ الْإِلَهِيَّةِ وَلَا مِنْ أَهْلِ دِينٍ فَإِنَّهُمْ يُطِيعُونَ مُلُوكَهُمْ فِيمَا يَرَوْنَ أَنَّهُ يَعُودُ بِمَصَالِحِ دُنْيَاهُمْ. So people who don't have the revealed books and they don't have any religion, they also follow their kings in the maslaha, in the worldly benefits. So this is a common denominator. This is a common principle. مُصِيبِينَ طَارَةً وَمُخْطِئِينَ أُخْرَى. Sometimes they are correct in their approach, and sometimes they commit mistakes. وأهل الأديان الفاسدة من المشركين وأهل الكتاب المستمسكين به بعد التبديل أو بعد النسخ والتبديل مطيعون فيما يرون أنه يعود عليهم بمصالح دينهم ودنياهم. So those who don't have any religion, they follow the worldly benefits, and those who have the corrupted religions, like the polytheists and the people of the book, Jews and Christians, they follow in their political affairs as a community, they follow what is beneficial for them according to their approach in their religion and the worldly matters, so on and so forth. So this is how he politicizes the community. This is the role of the community as a whole. This is the purpose of the community. In another treatise, this is al-Mustadrak ala Majmu' al-Fatawa. He talks about Masail al-Khilaf, hal fiha inkar. The disagreed upon matters, should we practice forbidding the evil in that or not? So in that he says, وَمَسَائِلُ الْخِلَافِ لَا إِنْكَارَ فِيهَا لَيْسَ بِصَحِيحٍ. As I said, we can agree or disagree with Ibn Taymiyyah himself. But here we are just trying to understand him first. Masailul khilaf, the matters in which we have valid disagreement, like the fiqhi matters and the branches of the aqidah, so on and so forth. La inkara fiha laysa bisahih. This is not correct to say that in all disagreed upon matters we should not forbid evil. We should not forbid in those matters. فَإِنَّ الْإِنْكَارَ إِمَّا يَتَوَجَّهَ. There are some basic principles in order to understand that. This is not true always. فَإِنَّ الْإِنْكَارَ, and then he explains these ضوابط, rules. فَإِنَّ الْإِنْكَارَ إِمَّا أَن يَتَوَجَّهَ إِلَى الْقَوْلِ بِالْحُكْمِ أَوْ الْعَمَلِ. So then he says, sometimes the community can criticize the rulers, and this is the right of the community if it contradicts sunnah or consensus of the community. He says, أما الأول فإن كان القول يخالف سنة. If it contradicts sunnah of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم أو إجماعا قديما, or a well-established practice of the community, وجب إنكاره وفاقا. It is obligatory to forbid it with agreement of the scholars. So he is not a political pacifist in that meaning, that he he worships the rulers, or he turns them into deities, as was the case in the West and the East, the Persian legacy. No. And as has become of some Muslim sects and groups, like the Madakhila, the extremist Salafis, and they claim to follow Ibn Taymiyyah. This is not true, because you will find in his work praise for jihad, praise for sword, and himself engaged in that. And also from the basic principles of empowering the community is that they have the right to criticize the rulers. Of course, there are adab, there are principles. However, the maslah of the community, the establishment of the community, the goodwill of the community should be the supreme catalyst. So this is another example, political pacifism of Ibn Taymiyyah. He adopted it in order to protect the community as a whole. Another example is Ibn Taymiyyah's, rahimahullah, criticism of the fiqhi extremism, the blind imitation. Ibn Taymiyyah is not against fiqhi taqleed per se, because he clearly says in Majmu' al-Fatawa, in many works, at-taqleedu jaizun fil jumla wal-ijtihadu jaizun fil jumla. Taqleed is permissible as a whole, and ijtihad is also permissible. Taqleed is permissible for the common Muslims because they don't have understanding of the text, they cannot engage with the hadith, they don't know the methods, they don't know the ilm, they don't know Arabic, they don't know ilm al-hadith, this and that. And ijtihad is for those who fulfill the conditions, the scholars. However, Ibn Taymiyyah, and after him his students, the prominent student was Imam Ibn al-Qayyim, they were against blind imitation and ta'assub, at-ta'assub al-madhhabi, when which led to stagnation of the knowledge. So again, this was this concern or this approach against taqleed of the madhahib, and was because of the community itself, empowering the community. And a community, common Muslims, they have the right to elevate themselves. They should be elevated. So this was again against elitism of the fuqaha, the jurists. Only jurists understand the will of God. And we know that fiqh is also a very complicated and sophisticated field of knowledge. It's not easy. Fiqh is not only about quoting from the books. The four madhahib culminated into a very sophisticated legal approach, legal method, which does not have any example in the legal systems of the East and the West. And we should cherish it. This is our legacy. However, the community was marginalized in this process. So Ibn Taymiyyah says, community can engage. Community can disagree. A common Muslim can disagree with it is not obligatory to follow one imam in all matters, so on and so forth. There are details to it. We are not going into the details. And again, we are not taking sides with Ibn Taymiyyah or going against him. We're just trying to understand him. And in that also, the legal method of Ibn Taymiyyah against taqleed, which culminated into the harakah, the Ahlul Hadith movement or Salafi movement, whatever you call it. I personally feel that the Ahlul Hadith movement of the subcontinent was indigenous and more sophisticated and nuanced than the Arab Salafi movement. And this is a separate topic. However, when the students of knowledge came from the Arab universities, they distorted the local Salafi or Ahlul Hadith movement. And the great icons of Ahlul Hadith movement, like the Dehlawi family, Shahwullah Muhaddis al-Dehlawi, and others, the Ghaznawi family, before them Ibn Taymiyyah, Ibn al-Qayyim and others. If you read the books of the Ahlul Hadith of the subcontinent, for example, the great Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan, you will find a balanced approach. You will find that they are more adjustable. They adjust others. They are not fanatics. Take the example of Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan. If Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan is not Ahlul Hadith, then no one is. Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan in his works even adjusts Muhyiddin ibn Arabi. Read his At-Taj al-Mukallal, which is about the great personalities of the Muslim legacy, around 300. He mentions Ibn Arabi as well. And there he explains, I have studied Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Arabi both. I have studied the critique of Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Arabi. We should take a balanced approach. Subhanallah, Nawab Siddiq Hasan Khan and others. So they were more balanced. Their approach was more nuanced. Now, this method has fallen into reductionism after we received the students of knowledge from the Arab universities and they distorted it. So the point which I'm trying to explain is here, the concern of Ibn Taymiyyah. What was the concern, main concern of Ibn Taymiyyah in his method of revival as a whole? In Ilm al-Kalam, in, like we explained, in law, the example of taqleed against taqleed, and the political method, Ibn Taymiyyah's political pacifism. The main concern was empowering the community and maslahah of the community. Another problem which happened in the classical Muslim political thought after the time of Al-Khulafa al-Rashidun was disengagement with religion as a whole. Religious authority was separated from the political authority. This was not the case in the early golden period of Islam. Abu Bakr radiallahu anh is religious authority and political authority both. Same applies on Omar, Uthman and Ali. They are great mujtahidun, they are great scholars, they are diplomats, they are statesmen, they are political authorities. This also became one of the main primary concerns of Ibn Taymiyyah. Because when a civilization or a political system, it loses its raison d'etre, maqsidul wujud, the purpose of its existence, it eventually falls into decline. This has been said by some Western thinkers about Roman Empire as well. Roman Empire was about to perish if it was not for Christianity, which revived it. So religion plays a very important role because religion is the ideology. And now you can see in our times also, when the Western ideas of democracy, liberal democracy, and human rights, and these things are declining, clear decline after the Gaza episode. We can see there is a clear decline. We saw the ruling of International Court of Justice. So after these, the concept of nation state will lose its meaning, and the decline has already started. I think, in my personal opinion, I may be wrong, the people will go back to their roots. And you will see the rulers around the world are trying to search for the roots again. And those roots were primarily based on religion or ideologies. So, for example, the Russia is searching for the Soviet Union legacy. Turkey here, they talk about the Ottoman legacy, right? China already has a great Chinese civilization in the past. The militant Hindu rulers, they have already initiated the project of Hindu Rashtra, going back to the legacy, so on and so forth. I don't know what will United States of America do, because it doesn't have a legacy behind, and they came to this new world by destroying the legacy there, the Red Indians and so on and so forth. So in my opinion, United States will completely fall into decline because it doesn't have a legacy. So United States cannot go back to Roman Empire. Roman Empire is different from United States and the modern West. So one of, from the Western intellectuals has said, what revived the sense of community in the politically moribund Roman Empire, politically declined Roman Empire, it was about to, it was at the brink of destruction, was the emergence of Christianity. When the Roman emperor accepted Christianity, Christianity became the religion of Roman Empire. So this saved the Roman Empire from falling into the abyss of destruction. So political would be revived by a deeply religious impulse. This is another contribution of Ibn Taymiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah focused on and emphasized on al-siyasa al-shar'iyyah. This term has never been used in this way by any other political thinker before Ibn Taymiyyah. In spite of the fact that all these thinkers and scholars and ulama, they knew the importance of Islam and religion. Islam is the core of all affairs of the ummah, particularly the political affairs. But this term was never used in this manner by any other scholar before Ibn Taymiyyah. As-siyasa al-shar'iyyah, not only siyasa, sharia, Islam, religion plays a very important role in defining and regulating the community. So we can say political thinking and action required a measure of unity and a shared set of commitments. Political thinking and action require a measure of unity and a shared set of commitments. And Ibn Taymiyyah's project, rahimahullah, was about defining that unity and the commitments, so that the community reigns supreme, its maslaha is the first priority, and community of Muslims is dragged directly into the religious, legal, social, and political affairs of the community itself and the ummah. And according to him, the decline of the Muslims is in neglecting the community, and the disappearance of the community and the divide which happens in the ummah. This is the summary, if I was able to do justice with it and explain it according to my capability. This is the legacy of Ibn Taymiyyah, the community-based political vision, which is very relevant in our times. Now we have fallen into the abyss of nation states and the Western political ideas and systems. So in order to revive the real political and original political vision of Quran and Sunnah, which culminated in the golden age of Islam in the form of al-Khulafa al-Rashidun, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wasallam said, "Alaykum bis-sunnati wa sunnati al-Khulafa al-Rashidin al-Mahdiyyin." Because of reductionism, we don't understand these hadith in a comprehensive manner. We reduce it only to understanding certain practices, this amal and that amal. Sunnah has comprehensive meaning. So the golden age is the age of al-Khulafa al-Rashidun. In order to revive it, in order to connect with it, we must empower the community, the ummah, the Muslim community, politicize it, drag it into the engagement with the reality. And of course, this is not a cup of tea for everyone. This must be done and performed by the thinkers of the ummah, because we cannot drag the community too much that it destroys itself. We have to define the fine lines. We have to devise the rules and principles of this engagement. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us understanding and elevate the ranks of these great scholars who in their times after the Sahaba radiyallahu anhum, innovatively engaged with the texts and the reality, and according to their capabilities, they devised solutions, innovative ideas, they theorized for the Ummah. And in this legacy, in this turath, we have a great treasure to understand. Everything may not be relevant, as I have said, but in each scholar, in each method, in the efforts of these great scholars, we have a great treasure which we can extract and use it as raw material for the new construction of the Ummah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us tawfiq of engaging with the revival of the Ummah according to our capabilities. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by His beautiful names and exalted attributes to cure our sick, accept our martyrs, and forgive our dead. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant nusrah to those who are supporting and aiding the cause of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from those who aim to destroy the cause of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wallahu ta'ala alam wa sallallahu ta'ala ala nabi al-ummi. This is the last session of political thinking in Islamic worldview. And we were discussing about political theory, a very important component of Islamic worldview. After that, we will move to ethics or morality. We have three more components remaining: teleology, ethics, morality. Number two, law or legal theory. Number three, aesthetics or art. And these three will not take much time. Maybe we dedicate 1 or 2 sessions to each component. And after that, inshallah, we will complete this engagement, Islamic worldview. Inshallah, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us and give us tawfiq.